Before we start, you'll hear me jump in occasionally throughout this conversation to clarify and connect a few ideas. There is a lot of fascinating science here, and I wanted to make sure it really lands. Hey, I'm Lucy, and welcome to Dissectologists. Today I'm talking with Dr. Donalee Markus, founder of Designs for Strong Minds. Her work explores how puzzle-based activities support cognitive health and brain strength. So today we're digging into something that I have really been dying to understand, what is actually happening in our brains when we puzzle. So thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
My pleasure.
So when people think about strengthening their brain, they often think about crossword puzzles, memory games. Where would a jigsaw puzzle fit into that picture?
The opportunities that we have with the jigsaw puzzle or with any puzzle, visual puzzle, we can divide puzzles into visual puzzles or auditory puzzles. So, for example, an auditory puzzle, someone starts giving you complex information and there's inductive and deductive reasoning going on at the same time. You're actually creating a picture in your mind. Visual puzzles, you're talking about jigsaw puzzles, the complexity of the puzzles, it gets greater and greater when we integrate visual discrimination and the visual complexity, the complexity of the shape. That's what happens with the jigsaw puzzle. The beautiful thing about a jigsaw puzzle is there's an intention. You know what the intention is, to put it together. Sometimes there's a picture for a frame of reference, and sometimes there's no picture.
True.
That's very hard. That makes it more complex. And people do not usually pick up jigsaw puzzles without the frame of reference unless they have a lot of experience with jigsaw puzzles. Some people do the borders first. So we have different ways of organizing the information, but we know what the intention is. And that's exciting. But the most beautiful thing about a jigsaw puzzle is that there's transcendence, which means that the skills you need to put together the jigsaw puzzle are skills you can use in other areas of your life.
So, what she's really saying here, jigsaw puzzles aren't just about fitting pieces together. They're training how we recognize patterns, process visual information, and solve problems. Basically, the same skills we use in everyday life.
So, for example, visual discrimination. When we look at a piece of the jigsaw puzzle and we notice the circle is convex, it means it's puffing out. Well, we know any piece that's going to go on that is going to have a curve. So we may look for a curve. We may look for a color. We may look for rotating it in different ways so that we can begin to compare and contrast other pieces with this. And these are all skills that we need throughout life as we navigate our complex environments.
Yeah.
We don't know what life has in store for us, but in many instances, it's very complex pieces of what we don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's interesting to me now, I do clinically applied neuroscience. I use what neuroscientists find and I create games, puzzles, context free puzzles that can be used to enhance brain function. Now, the most recent neuroscience, which is so exciting for super agers, because I'm old, it's very exciting to me, was done at Northwestern. Northwestern has a very large pool of people who participate in studies for super aging. A superager is someone who's 80 or above and tests cognitively like a 40, 50, or 60-year-old.
Wow.
Aha, we want those, we want those neural pathways. We want the secret.
And this is where the science gets really interesting. Researchers are actually studying what happens in brains that stay sharp over time.
And those individuals on the mid-cingulate gyrus, which is right in the middle of the brain
Okay.
toward the front near the prefrontal cortex, that area of the brain had a thickening, and all of the superagers exhibited this thickening. That area of the brain is where we integrate visual and auditory information. So when you look at a jigsaw puzzle, if you start talking to yourself about the jigsaw puzzle in words, it's almost like you're getting a twofer.
All right, so if you've ever talked to yourself through a puzzle, like this piece might go here, you're actually engaging multiple systems in your brain at once.
You're exercising your auditory and your visual imagery. It's a wonderful way to enhance memory.
So instead of like specific brain regions, is it more accurate to think about puzzling as like building and strengthening neural pathways over time?
Yes, we had the beautiful experience of the nuns in Indiana next to Notre Dame, the nunnery. In the 70s, these wonderful women donated their brains to science. And what we found was post-mortem, many of the nuns presented dementia or Alzheimer's, but they did not present that behavior.
Hmm.
Now, why?
Yeah.
How did that happen? And what they saw was there were alternate neural pathways that actually developed over the calcification.
Wow.
To me, that gives hope. In the nunnery, when they would see a nun beginning to slip, they would all work to get them to do things. And, meditation is such a powerful tool for restarting the brain and for clear thinking and for cleaning the brain, just like
Hmm.
sleep. And so, what's the closest thing to meditation?
Right.
Prayer.
Oh, wow. And this connects back to puzzling in a very interesting way because both require sustained focus and attention.
If you want to meditate or you want to pray, I don't care what you do, but give your full attention to focusing on your breath and give your full attention to a mantra. And this will do the same thing. Do it when you wake up and when you go to bed. Anything that you can do is going to help you.
I think it's like really interesting you mentioned the meditative side because so many puzzlers, myself included, describe the experience of jigsaw puzzling as calming or meditative. And so now I'm kind of wondering why that is now that you said that.
Well, it is because you're giving your full attention to a goal.
Mm,
You're giving your full attention because you want to complete that puzzle. And if you're giving your full attention to that, it takes precedence or pushes aside something else you're thinking about. But if you're doing that jigsaw puzzle, you can't think about that upset. Uh-uh. No time for that. And that's very calming.
wow, right? It's not just that puzzling feels calming. It's that your brain literally doesn't have room to focus on anything else. This might be out of left field a little if you don't have an answer on this or an opinion, it's fine. But why do you think puzzling feels so different from scrolling on like a phone, even though both of these are visually stimulating activities?
Well, because when you're scrolling, you don't have an intention.
Oh, okay.
There's no intention there, and the intention isn't complex.
Wow.
With a puzzle, it stretches your thinking because there are pieces. Oh my goodness, where's that piece go? I don't know where that piece goes. I don't know. This is a crazy piece, um, or one that doesn't have the picture. Scrolling, you're developing attention deficit, but whereas doing a jigsaw puzzle can help you navigate a strange airport because you're going to notice the signage.
Oh, wild.
Yes, you're going to notice a lot of things that other people may not notice.
That idea of intention really stood out to me because scrolling feels active, but it's actually pretty passive. Puzzling is totally the opposite.
Well, yes, because you're training your visual processing.
So, zooming out a bit, in your work with brain training and cognitive health, what do you hope people understand differently about puzzles?
That there is an intention. This intention and this focus allows you to use some of these skills in other domains. And I hope that they appreciate the diligence that's needed, the resilience that's needed, and to use that diligence in other domains as well.
Okay, so I want to shift gears for a second because I end every episode with the same three questions. But since we have your expertise, I thought that we'd approach it from a different angle. So, one thing I ask every guest is their favorite puzzle size, like 500, 1,000 pieces, whatever. Does size matter from a cognitive standpoint?
You can take a jigsaw puzzle that has 50 pieces, then you can take a jigsaw puzzle that has 100 pieces.
Yep.
You can take some that have 500 pieces, 1,000 pieces. You can make them more and more complex. And that's how you develop memory skills. That's how we exercise our brains. They're hierarchically organized.
No, I mean, that totally makes sense. It's not really about the number of pieces, it's just about gradually increasing complexity. The other question I usually ask people is like, you're missing a piece, what do you do? So in your case, I would say, what's happening in the brain when you realize that a puzzle piece is missing? Like at the end of the puzzle where you're supposed to get this accomplishment, right?
This is called visual closure. When you're missing a piece, you're going to fill it in with what it's supposed to be in your mind. People who can't tolerate that usually go to the refrigerator and they say, I don't see the ketchup. What do you mean the ketchup is in it? Where is the mayonnaise? They don't have visual closure. Visual closure is when the whole picture is not presented. When sometimes a foliage will distort a stop sign, but you have to figure out, well, that's a stop sign. It's the right color. It's got some pieces at the top that I recognize. So that's visual closure.
Okay, that idea, visual closure, it is so interesting. And you've maybe even actually heard of this before. It's basically your brain filling in what's missing, even when the full picture isn't there.
And you want to be able to say, I missed a piece, but I see the picture, and it was the journey that's going to change me. Recognize it's the journey and let it go. Let it go.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Perseverating on it is going to take up space and time. And is it worth doing that? So I do not get upset.
I love that. That's such a positive way to look at a missing piece. So thank you. So the last one I ask is you open a new puzzle and there's a few pieces that are already stuck together. Now, some leave those together. They're reducing the challenge, technically. Some people pull them apart. They're increasing the challenge. What does that say about maybe how we calibrate difficulty and reward in our brains?
I think there's another element you have to calibrate, and that's how much time do I have to put it together. If someone brings in a puzzle, and they brought puzzles to me, and I start doing it, I can't sit there for hours. You know what? I don't think it's a big deal. If there's a couple of pieces together, I mean, that's not the concept. To me, It doesn't indicate cheating. Now, I usually take the pieces apart, to be honest with you. I take them because I wanna see how I can do it and how fast I can do it.
Okay, right. So, not cheating, just being strategic. Love it.
Well, this has been so interesting. Dr. Markus, thank you so much for helping us understand what's happening beneath the surface when we puzzle. This has been a fascinating conversation. So thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, this has been my pleasure. I enjoyed it. I enjoy you. And keep puzzling, keep having fun. And if you need any other information, you know where to reach me.
Final thought here before we close out. I think what stayed with me the most from this conversation is that puzzling isn't just something we do to pass time. It's something that's actively shaping how we think.
And to everyone listening, whether you puzzle for calm, challenge, or the brain strength, now that we know that's a thing, you're doing it the right way.